talk about the that abstract that was on it. The title of it is a comparison of cardiovascular health indicators in children with juvenile idiopathic arthritis who meet and do not meet the physical education guidelines or physical activity guidelines. And I just found it very interesting. I'm using that word way too much tonight.
No, we always do. We need to print out, we need to go on the source. We all need to print out another word for interesting and put it on our computers.
Yeah, fascinating. I don't know. But this was actually done in Canada. And let's see, they were using the Canadian 24-hour movement guidelines that are recommended, that recommend that children take part in greater than or equal to 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity per day to help maintain optimal health. And again, we all know what folks feel like when they're flaring and when you're not feeling good. Exercise is always so important for everybody. Even with having RA 38 years into it, exercise is still super important for me and for all of us. So I'm not trying to say that I'm discounting the numbers or anything like that. I just want to make sure you understand what this was based on. And they did a lot of visits, and they used children's 7 to 17 years old with a single confirmed diagnosis of JIA. So again, that is your only diagnosis you can have to participate in this study. And again, these qualifications and disqualifications. But what they did a lot of ultrasound studies of their arterial stiffness. So your heart, they were looking specifically at your heart with a ultrasound, and they did an assessment to see how they fared. And it says over 57% of the children with JIA in the sample they had did not meet the greater than or equal to 60 minutes of that physical exercise, that moderate to vigorous physical activity. They also said that no significant differences in cardiovascular health indicators were found between the children who did and did not meet the guidelines. And they did say that the limitation, it was a little bit smaller sample size. I'm not seeing exactly a number. I don't see a number of the kids, but I'm glancing through it pretty quickly right now. But and they said that again, it's still enough that they want to keep looking into it, because I remember when I was in, high school in particular, I didn't participate in PE, with the physical education. I was put into adaptive PE, and essentially what that meant is I sat in the trainer's office and sat on one of the little cots in the trainer's office and read other things ahead for study hall. I was studying. There were a couple other things. I mean, I do remember they had a paraffin bath. So I would, put my hands into a paraffin bath and wrap in towels.
Nice. You had a spa day.
I kind of did. I had hydrotherapy, which are these other like really heavy, like dipped in hot water, wrapped in towels. Like they were like weights or something, but there was like metal in them to where it just insulated the heat. And I got to like put it on a part of my body that wasn't feeling great that day. So I got to do that too. But, I would have never met any of these guidelines. I just found it interesting that this just kind of jumped out at me as a study that was done. And again, they're looking into it for future cardiovascular health of these kids when they're not getting their exercise requirements in school, How about you, Katie?
No, I'm just thinking I would have loved that instead of my gym class. Um, no, for me, it was required to take gym class, so I took it as soon as I can to like get rid of it. I was excused from any kind of like physically intense or like contact sports kind of a thing. Um, so I would just, try to participate probably when I shouldn't have, especially I remember with the volleyball and hitting the ball with my hands and just being like,
Oh, yeah.
no. I did that once and like, no. Um, but no, a hot paraffin, wax. I did that for physical therapy though.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah.
I do remember because they um the mile, you guys remember having to do for the presidential whatever they were that you had to do these requirements, 50-yard dash and all those. I was a timer for those, and I also I chose to walk the mile and versus not participating altogether. So I remember doing that. So I just, just thinking back again in when I was 13, that was umpteen years ago, 38 years ago. So just
I
I'm sure
have questions because I'm listening as the person who did not have this back then, and reading this study and listening to your stories. So I'm looking and I have the study pulled up here, split screen, and it says children with juvenile idiopathic arthritis engage in less physical activity than their healthy peers. So I kind of chuckled when I first saw that because I'm thinking about my stepson who was here this weekend and did nothing but play video games all day. And both days, the whole weekend he was here. He did nothing but play video games or homework in his room. The only exercise he had at all was coming down the stairs to have pizza with us for dinner, and then 20 minutes later, go back upstairs. So, I want to know, first of all, because I'm curious, what exactly are they equating to their healthy peers? Because I know a lot of, I just want to know what that comparison is, just because if JIA kids are less physical than that, how much more less physical you can get.
right.
But so anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because I am curious what they're measuring that against, for the fact that I just know a lot of kids, unless they're playing sports, I don't know what their average daily exercise is. In saying that, I also am curious, when you all had that situation, it was decades ago.
Yeah.
What do we know? What is the standard now for if a child has JIA and they're supposed to be in gym class? Do they get paraffin waxes? Do they?
I do know that again. I will liken this to my son who had a concussion when he was in high school. So I will liken it to that. They were sent to the library to do reports on something physical activity related. So he was out for 2 weeks. And he hated every minute of it too. But he was sent to the library and had to, at the end of 2 weeks, present a 6-page paper.
Wow. I have no idea what that seems familiar. Like if someone maybe had like more of a temporary injury, like, broke their foot or in a cast. But I can't recall knowing any other situations or what they would do.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I mean, I work with our camps that we have through the Arthritis Foundation. I deal with those kids, and it's never come up in any conversation I know. But
our organization's been doing a lot in the specifically enthesitis related JIA, which we're going to talk about here next. And I've had personally done focus groups and conducted interviews and spoken with families, but that's not a topic we've talked about. We talk about generally, or school, like you both have talked about, get in the past to use the elevator, things like that. But we have not specifically delved into like gym class or, and not saying that this was not specific to gym class, right? I'm looking at the study. Right. This is just generally everyday movement. Yep. Yeah. But it does lead to that question about that. But I am curious, what is the daily activity now for any child between the ages of 7 and 17?
Yeah, I don't know that many people who exercise like at all. Like it's not kind of, something they do unless they've got like a dog that they have to walk.
Yeah, but the good news, Deb, the conclusion, because they were measuring something for cardiovascular health, correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What was that? Can you read?
Yeah. So they were doing ultrasound and tomography assessments of their carotid and carotid tool and their pulse rates. And they were using an ultrasound technique to do that. And I just find that really interesting that they were looking at all those different pieces. I also have some more information about it. So they were looking at that. Okay, methods. During visit number 1, they did height, weight, body fat were measured, and the participants then wore a accelerometer for 7 consecutive days to estimate habitual levels of their movement. During visit 2, they did the cardiovascular health indicators in a fasted state too.
Well, there you go. You answered my question on how they found the control versus the initial information on that they move less, because if the control had one of those on, and so did the patients diagnosed with JIA, then they could easily just measure that information and say
I'm looking at
this group moved
looking at the methods. I hadn't specifically read through the methods. Now that's what I'm hitting. So it's again interesting.
I'm surprised they got so many people, juveniles, to agree to wear the devices. Okay, so long.
They said the limitations were small. So in this paper, it says 21 participants. So 12 were girls and 9 were boys. And so 12. So
like one classroom of kids, just,
probably.
All right.
Yeah, it was sponsored through a grant aid from the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. That's who funded this. So interesting. And that, like I said, I hadn't, like on the actual abstract, there was none of that information, but I'm looking at all of the written information underneath from the scientists. And that's where, again, it shows just how limited it really was. So, but it's an interesting topic. And I think, just for any parent who has a child with JIA, they're going to want their kids to be active in any form that they can be. Now, this was like vigorous activity. If you're going through a flare, there's no way. And you don't want to poke a bear at that point, but
unless I was like running for my bus, that wouldn't have happened. So
I can't run, and probably
couldn't either, but
so there's no way I could there's other ways you could do a stationary bike and get your heart rate up, but
but not unless I had that motivation of like missing my bus or like, running to class before the bell rang. There wouldn't be that motivation for me to put myself through that kind of pain.
Right.
So
exactly.